Welcome back to the Ruins podcast. It's been on a quite a long hiatus for some good long period of time, maybe a year. None other than my good friend Maria Jose Irabarni has convinced me that it's a good idea to bring it back. So here we are. She is here because we love talking to each other. Sometimes it's hard for us to shut up once we get going. So please join me in welcoming a good friend from Buenos Aires, Maria Jose. Um, Raised in the US, but born in Argentina. She has degrees in literature and journalism. She's a smart cookie. Most of her career took place in South America, and she was a simultaneous interpreter focusing on the arts, which I find fascinating. I want to hear what simultaneous means specifically for interpreter. And Maria Jose now lives in Buenos Aires and specializes in all forms of communication. And that's where we met down there. You took care of me.
Oh my God, Rachel, first of all, thank you so much. What an honor it is to be a guest on your podcast after a hiatus. That's fantastic. And it's kind of like honoring what I would say is a journey from you being my mentor to being my friend, really. I mean, we've known each other. I was doing the math the other day, 9 years.
Wow.
Actually, it's been exactly 9 years since I was at the Ruins.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
June. Beginning of
June.
June,
Oh,
yes.
wow.
So it's that's very auspicious, I think. And yes, I am living in Buenos Aires where we met. Buenos Aires, which today the aires it means good air, Buenos Aires, but it's very foggy and it's been like this for about a week. So very strange weather for Buenos
Hmm.
Aires.
Well, it's a big city. That's one of my most clear memories of going down there like a little bird without any Spanish. You know, you weren't just my interpreter and my translator. You were my caretaker in some ways. I mean, we spent a lot of time together. You took me to the cafes. Went out to dinner together. I felt welcomed. Fernanda Hatton of Hatton Mosaic Studio was wonderful. But I spent more time with you than anyone.
I mean, that's usually what happens when there's a connection. I mean, one of the best things about being a simultaneous interpreter,
So that
besides the
just
amount,
means you're doing it in person, right when it's happening, simultaneous?
right? Well, interpretation has, which is not the same as translation. People say translator, but translating is written, so you have more, more of an opportunity to check on what you're doing and correct or edit what you're doing. Whereas
Mhm.
simultaneous interpretation is usually done in a booth when you do it for like a big conference. You sit in the back in a booth with another interpreter because you take turns because you don't want to go crazy and lose your mind. Because it is something that is very stressful. The brain is going back and I mean, you're listening in one language and the output comes in the other language.
Mm.
So it can get, you need a practice, obviously, to do that. And then that's when big conferences happen. But obviously, I did it a lot in smaller settings, like when you came to visit. So simultaneous is at the same time. And like I said, usually done in booth. And consecutive interpretation was what you and I did when you were here because you would talk in English and then I would translate Spanish and
I
it
see.
goes back and forth. So it takes a little longer to do that. And people who do speak both languages are listening to both things twice, but that's okay. That's the way consecutive interpretation works.
Mhm.
I kind of like the simultaneous one because you sit in a booth and you kind of just disappear. It's the funny thing about, interpretation is that if you do it right, you disappear. People forget you're there,
Yeah. Well,
which is,
we didn't forget you were there in the workshop, certainly. I mean, you're right there, and there's such an art to it because you have a lot of power, you know? I mean, you were, um, the conduit to everything for me, and I know how careful you are and attention to detail about getting the words right because my words are important to me too, and when I'm trying to communicate to students, especially students from across the world that I've only just met, there was a lot of power.
yeah. Well, again, I think it has a lot to do with connecting with the person you're working for. In this case, I was interpreting for you. But I was fascinated because I was learning to work with mosaics. So I was in heaven. I mean, seriously, more than, it was just because I had been studying with Fernanda and taken my first steps with mosaics, and until I grabbed a hammer and Hardy, and that was it. The no turning back for me. But when you were there, like your presentations were so generous. I mean, there was
Mhm.
that you would just give. Because you're a great teacher, Rachel. I mean, people must have told you this a million times. In the sense of in person, you were so generous because you told us about your past, and you said things like, I come from coal, and I never forgot that. It's like, just getting that sentence right in Spanish, because it's not exactly the same grammatically. But anyway, it just carries such weight, which is what I think, as an interpreter, you have to really be very faithful to what is being said and get yourself out of the way, which is
Right.
not, that's the thing again about a good interpretation is you get yourself out of the way because you're just a bridge. You're just a bridge. You're
Mhm.
just trying uh to get people to forget you're there. It's when the rare times when that does happen, like I said, when I used to work in a booth simultaneously, you would go out on a coffee break and hear somebody said, no, because he said this and he said that and he said, but they had the headphones on. So he said it, but I repeated it. But I had to say those same words. So when they forgot that it was a female voice, even because usually ideally you have a man for a man, a woman for a woman, that doesn't always work
Mm.
that way. But I guess when that happens, I felt so happy because I'm like, yay, it got across.
It did. It did, yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. I often think of movies, when I'm having a real life conversation. I don't know if that happens to you, but wasn't there a movie called The Interpreter with Nicole Kidman at the UN? Wasn't she a UN interpreter? That's what that whole conversation makes me think of that because I can remember her in that little booth, and then
Absolutely. I think it was a thriller.
she heard something she wasn't supposed to hear, I think was the point, yeah. Mhm.
I saw it years ago. Was Sean
Yeah.
Penn in it? Or I don't know. I maybe,
It might have
I
been
don't remember.
Sean, yeah, or George no, I forget, but it was him
Oh,
and Nicole Kidman, yeah, so it
I'll
was
look
a
it up.
good movie, yeah. Um, but back to the city itself, it was such culture shock for me coming from my little Witsit, and I've visited lots of cities, but that is my only South American city that I've ever been to, and I mean, it just the hugeness of it was what I remember when we were being driven around and, I didn't have a car, obviously, so everywhere I went, I was dependent on either you or Christian or Fernanda, but it's so famous for having its own personality, Buenos Aires.
I mean, I would say that one of the most famous things, and I'm going to language instead of the city, but is the way we speak. I mean, if I open my mouth in Miami, it's happened before. People will say, Argentina. They know immediately because of the Spanish we speak.
Mhm.
But the city itself, I think it's one of the, oh gosh, I don't know the stats, but it's one of the biggest cities um, in South America for sure. I think maybe it's second after São Paulo, but I'm not absolutely sure. To check that. Um, and it is an eclectic city. I would say it's very big. It is very, very big. It has supposedly the widest avenue in the world, which is the Nueve de Julio, which is where our obelisk is, which is where every time a championship is won, everybody goes to the obelisk and celebrates and things like that. And it's a city I love. I mean, I was born here, but immediately, or when I was a child, at 5, I moved to the U.S. So that was a big culture shock right there, completely different. But I think Buenos Aires it's a very eclectic city. It's a city full of bookstores and theaters. I think after Paris, it's the city with the most amount of theaters in the world.
Mm. It has a
So
real European feel to it in certain ways. I mean, not completely because it definitely has a South American feel too, but that layeredness, it seems like.
yes, that's a good way to put it. It's a layeredness. It's eclectic. It's got some buildings that are very turn of the 20th century when it was a very rich city in the early, I would say, 20s, 1920, more or less. And then it has, buildings from the 60s. I mean, it's like everything is here. There
Mhm.
is no code. Everything's the same. No, everything is different. And it's got lots of different neighborhoods. But I think what it has is the vibe. It's got a
Mhm.
great cultural vibe. People who visit, even musicians like rock stars and stuff, they go, "We've never had, anybody as loud and as noisy and as they people go to the rock concerts and they sing." And we even on social media, you get these clips where they compare like, the audience in Buenos Aires jumping up and down and screaming, and then people, you know, being very stiff upper lip somewhere else. You go,
Like
where
in
is this?
Pittsburgh audiences are famously that way, that second way that you're describing. I've heard that
Uh,
said. Yeah, reserved.
so
Mhm.
yeah, so it's just, I mean, I love the city. I lived in Mexico for a little while, in Spain, but yeah, I call this home now, definitely.
Nice, nice. Well, I don't know if you knew this, but while I was down there for those 2 weeks in the very small, little studio, and, with the apartment that was there, I was very insulated in the studio/apartment. I was getting to know my final husband. Robert, I call him my final husband to make a joke, but, he really is, and, we had just met, Maria, online, and so we hadn't actually spoken to each other at all when I got on a plane and flew down there, and he talks about it now, and he laughs. He thought I was some kinda real big shot, like, he thought I was, being put up in a fancy hotel because he heard Buenos Aires, and I didn't give him the details. But the first time we ever talked on the phone was there after class, after you left and went home and everybody put me to bed and maybe I had a glass of wine, and we made our first phone call, and we got to know each other, in the Hatton Mosaic studio for 2 weeks. We talked every single night, and then by the time I got home, we had talked so much and clicked so well that, when you meet somebody online, I don't know if you know this, but this is like the thing, you go for coffee in a public place, right? You don't bring them to your home if you have not met somebody. And I was like, just come over, I'll make you dinner. So that's what we did. I made him a chicken pot pie, and that was the end of that.
Wow. I mean, I love this story because, first of all, it's one of the nicest stories. And I totally remember, Rachel, you talking to Robert,
Mhm.
whom I met
Yep,
later. But
yep.
I mean, I remember that I'm talking to this guy, and it was this. I remember it perfectly because it's one of those stories that had such a wonderful ending instead of like, nothing happened. So
Yeah,
I'm
2
not
words.
surprised that he got his meal.
Pot pie, yeah, and now he loves to make the joke that I never cook anymore, but I tricked him with that chicken pot pie in the very beginning, and so he thought that I was gonna keep cooking, and then I didn't, so, yeah. But it wasn't too
Oh.
long after that, after I got home, that you got yourself to the ruins, which is, that was just kind of big of a deal as me going down there, and you coming up here, and you were one of the very first students to come through back when we were teaching the live sessions at the ruins.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you came to Buenos Aires, I remember well, I think it was October 2016, and like I said, June 1st, 2017, I was at the ruins, which was like a big dream, and I mean, again, having seen your presentations and your pictures, I remember the first time I saw that sign, "You are here," your actual "You are here" sign, which is one of the best ideas. I mean, and now it's turned into its whole thing, the "You are here." But I remember seeing that at your home, and I remember, of course, Robert was so kindly went to pick me up at the airport.
Right, that's right, I forgot.
He
Mhm,
picked me up out of the goodness of his heart,
mhm.
and I think we rode back to your place. It took like an hour and a half because it
Yeah,
was
it's a long
sometime in the
journey.
afternoon.
Mhm.
So, and we talked. He wanted to know, did you work for Michael Jackson? And and all this stuff. So, I told him a lot of those old stories, and it was just a blast. And it was, I remember And I wrote about this, like him opening his truck and there was like a knife and I'm like, whoa, there's a knife on the floor.
Robert is famous for his tools and weapons. Yes, he is. Yep.
So, and then we got to your place and you had cooked dinner. I think it was pork or something really. And you were like,
Mm,
oh, why'd you guys take so long? Those 2 days there were just perfect. They were just perfect. And I met your whole family. So,
yeah.
so it was the very special days there.
It was a moment in time for sure. My favorite memory, and we do have a few. I mean, I remember taking you down at the river and looking for rocks. We can get to that next, but was you holding this big steel ring that I gave you, and I really think that that was an original piece from the ruins that we found, and it just happened to be there when you were there, and you responded to it, and you loved it, and I showed you how to work the grinder, which was the stationary grinder that has the wheel that goes like this, and, put the safety glasses on you and the gloves and everything, gave you a safety lesson, and then you just went to town, smoothing out this wheel with the grinder, which was kinda dangerous. Really, it was a little bit dangerous, but you were fine, and you were so full of joy while you were doing this. I remember.
Oh my God, that was so much fun. I felt like I was 5 years old again because all the
Mhm.
sparks were flying. And I kind of, I get that a little bit when I'm back in the US because it's my second home for sure. But the ruins is a magical place. So not only was I back in the US, I was with your whole family and I was uh, finding all these things. And I remember that wheel that you found, you just came up with it and like, here, you can use this. And I can use this? Yeah, you can use it on your piece. And I remember we talked about what was this? What purpose,
Did
did
you
it serve?
I don't remember.
No idea.
No, probably still don't know, I don't know. Mm-mm. Well, it's still there on your
It,
on your installation,
what
and
an honor.
I think the reason you were looking for a circle was because we had just, I had put you on the back porch and handed you my copy of, Jung's Red Book, right? Big copy. I mean, it's a big red book. It's one of my most precious, things that I have, and you were all over it because you knew what the Red Book was. Not everybody knows that. That's kind of a niche, piece of literature.
That is a very, again, we're in magical territory again with that Jung's Red Book. And you actually have that book. That's an extremely valuable book, by the
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
It's a piece of art with all the drawings. And so I had been working with archetypes just a little bit here after your courses in Buenos Aires and just playing around with stuff. And that just seemed to be the perfect choice. And it was actually of a man, and there were no men yet at the ruins.
You mean men working, like,
I
as
mean,
artists?
no, installations that,
Oh, I
because
see.
this was this 2017.
Right, it was before any of the portraits, right.
It
Mhm,
was before the portraits. It was before you had such a clear idea of what was happening on that canvas.
mhm.
I think it was an experimental phase.
Yeah, it was, for sure. There wasn't really much art on the walls when you were there, really. 2017, I mean, that what the year yeah, 2017, but I remember the little man that you made, he had his hands up like this, and he ended up holding this big circle up. So, kinda like Atlas, a little bit? Like
A little bit. I think it was the Wheel of Life, that one that I chose, or I thought it was. I think it has something to do with Jung trying to piece together even his manhood or something like that. I think that's the entry if we look it up later or something like
Mhm.
that. But mosaics to me, the big gift I think was piecing things together. Like taking scattered bits and pieces from everything and just making something new out of that. I think that's what I love about mosaics. And what really to me makes it an art form that eventually will be, I hope, regarded as such and not so, like, oh, it's a smaller, yeah, yeah, my picnic table is like that. And you're like, well, this is not exactly the same thing.
Mm.
Um,
Many times, yeah.
so
Mhm.
that's what I loved about it. And like I said, being at the ruins was a magical time. The other students who were there, having a barbecue like with a fire pit with your family before the bridge was built. Because this,
So
I want
way
to go
before,
back and see the
way
bridge. It was way before.
mhm.
So just sitting out there, and I think Robert cooked that time. You were too busy with
Mhm.
your
Wasn't
students.
that the night that, Leon brought a fish from the river and we cooked it, or was that another night?
No, I don't remember eating
Okay,
fish.
okay,
No, would have
yeah.
been fun. That would have been
So,
fun.
here's a question for you, going back into this early like, almost Wild West ruins time, uh, 'cause that's what it felt like back then. Everything was just we did whatever. Now we have a lot more rules and structure around everything, but if there would be something that, you could identify how do I wanna ask this? Something the ruins is doing from your perspective now that I can't see because I'm so embedded into it. Like, sometimes I wonder about that. Like, I mean, it's so weaved into every part of my life that sometimes I feel like I can't see the big picture. I'm obsessed with the big picture.
Well, I don't, what's coming to me now, it's like it's the blue ice of America. That's the
Oh.
we're both gonna end up crying because we know what the blue ice is. But no,
Mhm.
seriously, um, what I love about the US as my second home, and I think that's what the ruins is to be it's it's hard to explain to people sometimes. I say, "Do you know that there's no other place like the US in the world?" They say, "Ah, why do you say that?" It's not that I've visited every single country on earth. I have not, but I've visited enough on different continents. The US is different. It's just different. It's different. The how it was founded, I don't know. It's just a place where everything came together in a different way. And I also, as you know, consider myself American because I'm in South America, but it's also America. It's a place where things were made new and where there was a second chance for people. Imagine that. I mean, seriously, saying, okay, we're starting over for whatever religious reasons. There are a whole bunch of reasons. Historians would be able to explain that better. But I think what the ruins does, to go back to the ruins, is your rule number one, Rachel, which is my favorite chapter in the book. It's honor what was. Um, honor what was. And I don't know if we understand the importance of that because I think we've gotten to a place where we're so fragmented as humans that we think we just come out of some shell or egg and you appear on the world and it's there for you. And that's not what happens in the world. The best things we have are because other people, other humans, other communities, because it's individual, but it's also communal. Other people have done these things and created these things and given their lives up for these things. And we get to enjoy them. And it seems so sad to go through life without honoring that to
Hmm.
me.
Boy, that's beautiful. I yeah, so well said. Yeah.
And I think, and you get that. You not only get that, but you've got that spiritual blue ice about, what the US is and just so many good things about it, because I'm hearing so many bad things about it all the time. And I'm like, whoa, this is my second country. There's so many good things about it.
Well, I love that you're putting the ruins into an American, description because it is very, very American. And deep in my soul, I believe that it is an American place, even though it has a big bear hug to the rest of the world, whether it's visitors or the artists. And it's a very welcoming place, but its essence, its soul is American. It is.
Well, but look at this, Rachel. You've got a whole bunch of other countries up on the ruins. What does that say? I mean, I'm serious about this.
Mm.
You've opened it up to people sending. I know there's a map of Argentina there as well. I mean, what does that say? I don't even know where that came from you, but it's like, hey, let's use a wall to get maps from. I know how you love maps. You've always loved maps.
Mhm.
And that is embedded in your work so much. But you've opened it up to people sending in mosaics of their own country.
I know. It looking back on it now, I think we have I forget how many, 11 countries or 10 or something like that, and they don't just come quickly because it's a lot of work making a country. But it gets a little complicated, borders today, I'm not gonna go into the details, but, I wanted the melting pot to come back. I think that's the reason I started doing that because the coal mine itself was considered an American melting pot. All the different Eastern Europeans, Western Europeans, African Americans, they were all coming to this coal mine, doing this one job and becoming Americans together. And, then the whole place went to sleep for almost 100 years, and then all of this new energy started coming in the in the artists themselves, and it turned out they were from everywhere too, so it seemed to it did make sense, and it still does. Um, yeah, yeah, the new melting pot.
Well, absolutely. Not only that, but how art unites, and it unites beyond some of the petty things that we keep fighting about.
Mhm.
It really does. I mean, that's another thing that at a certain point in life you go, well, what is really worth it? Everything artistic to me is worth it. Everything. Writing, mosaics, singing, um, purpose. And it's there in the at the ruins.
Purpose, yeah, purpose is a good one. Um, you know, one of the reasons we're here talking right now is because years ago, you said to me, I think you texted it or emailed it or something that if you ever need a beta reader, Rachel, I will be happy to be that for you. And at the time, I did not even know what that meant. I didn't even know what a beta reader was. I've learned so much since then. I mean, it really just means an early reader, just someone who helps something get to the next place. And so by the time that I did decide to finally write a book this like early this winter, I don't know when it was, but you were the first person that popped into my head. Oh, I have a beta reader. She wants to do it. And then when I, I asked you about it and you were so in from the beginning. And honestly, I'm not sure that this book would be happening. I don't know if it would, or it would be happening in a different way if you hadn't jumped in as early as you did. And this is going to make me cry because I've had maybe 10 early readers, I would say. So I didn't count them exactly, but and everybody had their own way of doing it. But it's a hard thing, especially if it's a friend, which some of them were friends, to be honest about exactly what it is you wanna say. I mean, I had a lot of people say, "Oh, I loved it." And that's great, but it doesn't really help me at that early stage. It doesn't help me get to that next place. You were specific and you loved it, which helped. But you were able to point out, where, certain things where I was telling but not showing. That was something that stuck with me, and I've internalized it. I don't know, how would you explain showing or telling but not showing in a writing kind of way?
Okay, first of all, I want to say something, which is when you first got here, I'll jump back, but then I'll jump back in again.
Mhm.
Uh, I showed you some of the mosaics that I'd done, and I had bought like these all these beautiful stones, and I showed it to you, and you went, "Mm, well, because there was no andamento in it.
Oh, remember that, yeah. Okay.
So,
Sorry. I'm sorry.
so that's why I say before Rachel and after Rachel, because, I thought it was beautiful because it had all these beautiful stones in it and I had put them in there, but there was no narrative to it. There was no andamento to it.
Language, yeah.
And there was no language. And you told me that. You didn't say, oh, that's so nice because I was here working with you. You did not. You
Mhm.
said, there doesn't work. Or you said it nicely, but so the same thing goes the other way around with the book. And the fact that I did work as an editor for about 2 years with a very cool friend now, also a friend who's Italian, but he writes in English. So anyway, I edited his books. So editing is, I think, is that. It's being able to see the big picture, the whole thing, the whole story, and then, you go down into the details. And that's an important thing to develop is the wide vision of something. It's like looking at a painting and seeing the whole thing, and then you can zoom in. But they
Mhm.
have to work together, I think,
Mhm.
like the big picture and the detail. And so when I first read it, I loved it because I thought it was, the book so authentic. It was so real. It was so this word probably doesn't exist. Uncliche. I don't think that word exists. I'm making it up.
Well, thank you.
Uh
I like it. Yeah, we can make it a word. Yeah.
so So I just thought it worked. It worked on every level. And I also thought that even, and you were too nice. Of course, the book would exist without me because it has to do with the ruins and it has to do with the fact I think that you've always been a writer. That's another thing is that you're not only a mosaic artist, you've always been a writer. You've always been a good reader. You've recommended books to me. So we've also had that in common, the fact that we love books and
There's
we
a
love to
difference
read.
between writing essays, which I told you that back when we talked in January when the book was still a baby, that I consider myself more an essayist, writing 1,500 words at one go, one idea and just like diving into the one idea and chewing on it and seeing what comes out the other side. And I collected all my favorite essays and I put them together. This was before you read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a book. And I was so far from having a book. I just thought that I had a book. Robert has been living through this for the last, I don't know, well, 9 months maybe. And he has refused to read the book because he said, it's never finished. You say it's finished, Rachel, but it's not really finished because you go back in again. And he's right. He finally started reading it this morning. I'm not kidding.
Ooh,
Morning, because I have finally passed it off to the editor for the last time, and I have promised myself and the editor that I'm done. We'll see, because there's always more,
that's
to tweak.
well, that's the problem with editing your own work. You know, there's a saying, and you asked, I didn't answer your question about showing and not
So,
telling,
mhm,
which is very very. It's the key thing in writing is when we first write, we tend to just tell people like we would tell them when, you're talking to somebody. So I went down to the store and this guy walks up and he did this and he did that. And that's kind of like just telling and not showing. Showing is when the reader can see the guy who walked into the store. You could see what he looks like.
description,
It's
yeah,
description. It's the best is non-judgmental as well, meaning you just present what is being shown. You don't necessarily, and essays do give a lot of opinions. So
mhm,
because I write a lot of essays myself, I do find that also difficult.
and wrapped in a bow at the end with one last line to tell someone how to feel. That's what I had to beat out of myself.
Yeah, exactly. This is what because we the messaging, el mensaje, like, oh, and what is this book about? What's the message? Well, there is no message. I don't know what the message is in a book. It depends on who's reading it.
Mhm,
That they're when the message is too clear, well, maybe they should have written an essay,
mhm.
or some other kind of nonfiction. Ideally, I think that's the tricky part about nonfiction, which is your book, is you still have to resort to what you would in fiction, which is there's lots of showing and not telling, and so that's kind of difficult to get good at eventually. And so I think I left a question behind. You asked me something else,
Oh,
and
that's
then
okay. I was just thinking about, that show versus tell because you and my editor who because he did a very early read too, and then you both said the same thing in different ways, but I heard it. And I think, I love having an editor. I just I g I'm like, yes, I keep saying my editor, we just met a couple days ago on Zoom, but he's been working with me a little bit back and forth. But he made the comment, which, made me happy that not all writers really want the feedback. Even when they have an editor, they bristle at certain feedback. I truly was ready for every bit of criticism, and there's constructive criticism, right? There's an art to it. You have it, he has it. So you don't tear somebody down. You just put just enough to say, "Oh, maybe this is too much," or maybe you're telling someone how to feel. I literally felt like I was lapping all of that up. I benefited from every single comment in there, and I made the changes and, I want more. Like, it's made the editing in some ways was it just as fun as the actual writing. Does that make sense?
well, it makes sense, but that's not probably what a lot of writers would say because it's so difficult to do the editing. And there's a saying, I don't even remember who said this, but writing is rewriting. I mean,
Mm.
nothing comes
Oh,
out
yeah.
right the first time. And believe me, I've been in enough writing groups and expat writing groups and Spanish and English writing groups. And the first time somebody writes something, they will toss it on the desk and say, "This is awful. This is
Oh,
just horrible. It's worthless." And boom, pa, they whip each, they, everybody's,
how do you
no.
come back from that? How do you keep writing if you get that message? Oh my gosh.
Well, but we are our worst critics. And I think this goes for all arts. We can be so
Mhm.
critical, and if you've done a little bit of work in self development, people, somebody will ask you, whose voice is that? Whose, whose voice is that tearing you down? And it's usually, it could be a parent, it could be, I don't know, but we have that inside us and we tend to be so vicious. And I keep thinking, how many people do not go out and do things because that inner critic is so awful.
Mm. Mhm,
And
mhm,
so when you had doubts, I'm like, Rachel, this is perfect. This is exactly what's supposed to be happening. You're supposed to be doubting yourself.
mhm.
Everybody doubts themselves, and you just got to keep going. It's just that.
Yeah, I put it down for a little while, which I did, I would put it down for a week or 2 weeks even, and then come back with fresh eyes, and that was the advice I got, and it really does work when you put it down. But, there's that other layer of our relationship, you and me, is that we share writing and mosaic together actively, you know, and how many overlaps there are between the 2 arts, but also differences, they're not there's a lot of differences too, but maybe I'll just because I was just thinking about this morning, because I've been thinking about the editing so much. The editing and writing is in some ways easy because you just go in and just cut on your laptop, just delete, take out one word and that could change a whole sentence. And it's easy to do. But, and you may have had to wait a week to see that you needed that edit. But if you do that with Mosaic, you got to get the chisel and the hammer out, and it's a completely different way of editing. So that's one of the big difference physically between the 2.
Oh, okay. Physically, of course, yes.
Mhm.
Writing is a very intellectual art in the sense that, yeah, we can get very nerdy. I know that. It's, that's the way it is.
Tessera is a
And
word, right? A tessera is a word, a line is a sentence, a paragraph, a book, all of that. Mhm.
right, but I think what they are exactly the same in is that if you can also change a tessera, right? That's how you say it.
Mhm.
And it would change the whole line, right?
Oh,
In
yeah, the wrong one
mosaics.
or the right one. Yeah.
And so many people I've seen do that, take a just some sort of tool and go and just tear out the tesserae that looks wrong.
But it's
And
usually it's usually not just that one tessera, it's often the 2 before it also that have to come out. That's something else that mosaicists have learned over the years. Where a
oh,
little
okay,
bit
that's
farther back in the
interesting.
line, yeah, a little bit farther back in the line is actually where the problem started. It's just that piece where it started to reveal itself and it made itself obvious, but you may have to take the other ones out too.
Hey, but that could work for literature as well.
Mhm, mhm,
Actually, it might not be a word; it might be something that happened in the previous paragraph. That makes a lot of sense.
mhm, yeah.
So, yeah, so in that sense, I just think working with mosaics is a lot more intuitive, probably, than and not as brainy as working with words.
Yeah, you can turn your
And
brain off to a certain extent while you're if you're especially if you're working with something abstract and you're just feeling the flow, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
I love working abstract and just working with the colors and the sizes. I think you go to a different place.
Speaking of different places, I have noticed when we talk about, stone or when you talk about stone, your voice actually changes its decibel a little bit. You get very romantic and a little bit more sensitive than even normal. You just something in your, what would this be called? I don't know, just the manner in how you present it. Stone does something to you. It just does. I can feel it. And I remember when we went down to the beach down there at the ruins at the river, and I took you on that walk, and we were looking at all the different stones, and we were talking about, stone always looks different inside than it does outside. So what is it about stone for you?
Well, again, and I learned that from you a lot and from foraging and just I remember we went foraging to a park here in Buenos Aires. It was the least place
Yeah.
of all places that you would think you could find stuff, and we did.
Yeah,
We
we
found
did.
rocks.
It was challenging though. That city was challenging to find geology
It
for me.
was, but
Mhm.
I guess what I learned again, and this has to I think it has to do with your maxim honor what was, is when you cut a rock open, how long has that object been in existence?
Mhm.
What am I even breaking here? It just, there's a level of reverence, I think, anytime I go and cut a stone open. It's just that I don't, it makes me wonder, how did this object come into existence?
I think
What
it's so
minerals?
you're a pure witness to something, a pure witness. I've never put that word with the witness before, but because you're witnessing something being open for the first time ever, actually. I mean, because the way it was created was over long periods of time with sediment and pressure and all of that. So you, as the hammer wielder, are cracking
Yes.
for the first time, and there's a magic in that every time.
Every time, and it's like, "Please, I hope I'm not being disrespectful. I am, cutting this open to use it for beauty and for something that has a different purpose."
Communication, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, stone is I love stone, and I remember when I started with mosaics, when I was a kid in
Georgia.
uh, Georgia, yeah, way back when, I would collect stones, and there was mica, that stone that it looks like a mirror and has, like, little layers? There's a lot of mica in
Mm.
Georgia. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear this is true. I did collect those rocks back
I believe it, I believe it. Yeah, they
then.
have those really thin layers, Micah.
Exactly, and I loved it. It was these shiny little layers of rock. So anyway, that I remember that.
Mhm,
And, so I guess I've always loved rocks. I guess what I'm saying is I've always loved stone.
mhm.
But, it just the fact that, you can cut it up and again, the different like you always say, a girl can never have too many hammers, and you can't always have your way with rocks.
Right.
That's
They
you
don't all
always say that.
right, yeah. But, I mean, when it is the right stone and you have the right hammer, the feel of cutting stone is so different than cutting glass. And I know there are certain mosaicists in our world that really don't even enjoy cutting glass because they love the I don't wanna use softness necessarily, although sandstone has that soft feel when it cracks
Yes.
open, but there are other stones that are a little bit more challenging to you that can also give you that wonderful feeling, like limestone, marble. Marble can be soft too, but, it just depends. And, I mean, nobody likes to cut granite. I don't think anybody does. Nobody.
I love marble. I love marble, and I have foraged marble, like, buildings they were building
Yeah.
around in the neighborhood, like, they would throw out pieces of marble. I don't do that anymore because there's way too many things in my workshop, as is.
Mhm.
But, I love marble, and I think I love sandstone when I was at the ruins. I love the perfect little cubes. I can't always get those perfect little cubes, and I think it has to do with the stone, but it also has to do with technique. You need to get I still need work in terms of being able to
You
cut.
able to find sandstone in your city? No. Mm-mm.
No, 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 and red dog, I have a little bit of red dog
I should
still.
send you some more. I'll send you some more. I'll send
No,
you
I still have some, from
some.
when I came back from the ruins, but that does not cut into cute little cubes either.
No, it doesn't. You just have to go with what it wants to do, which is also
Right.
that's also fun.
It's wonderful. I guess that's the thing, right? And that's how where what do you put in the line? You know? Like the perfect cube and suddenly something that is completely different. I don't know, that's the fun part, right? About
It is.
discovering that.
It is. I'm mixing them all together or keeping them separate, but in the same composition and, using the little, cubes of sandstone that can be so I don't wanna use the word perfect, but close to perfect, perfectly imperfect, and then putting a little bit of shale or red dog in the composition too, and they work against and with each other.
Yeah.
Mhm. So here's a question: did you happen to read the updated chapter 14?
I did.
We don't have to talk about it. I just wanted to know if you read it. So, that is, there were 3 chapters that the editor told me were the thinnest of the whole book, and they were all this is interesting, they were all ones where I was, focusing a little bit more on how the business of the ruins works, marketing, not necessarily marketing, but just how the message gets out into the world as opposed to the story of the ruins itself. And they were more, I think when he read them, they were more like Substack essays. They hadn't been polished enough, but I ended up going in completely, deleting the whole, Infinite Resource chapter 14 and rewriting it from scratch, and I feel like that one change actually transformed the book. I don't know if you feel like it was that important or not, but it was for me.
It was for you. Well, that's important because you must have touched on something. I think it's the one about you go to New York and the Frick
Yeah.
collection, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So to me, that was it was so different from the rest of what I had read. And I did I mean, I knew what you were talking about. I don't remember every individual piece, but I love the Goya painting that you chose to write about.
Mhm.
But the big difference that I saw there, and I think it's what we started talking about at the beginning of this podcast, is in that collection there is, European art.
Mhm.
It's all European artists and everything, and I think the big difference, if we were to say, is that the ruins really is going back into the ground and going back into the native history and to the ground and what's there. Not so much, oh, here's, I don't know, a painting by this well-known painter. It's almost like finding your own uh your own credits, your own values that are there. It's not that you're making them up in some narcissistic dream or something, which we see a lot of lately. It's just really, I don't know, doing
Well,
finding
one of the
a
things I
new
s
art.
yeah, I think one of the things I say in the beginning of the book is that the place is the protagonist of the book. I think I actually say it in writing. So I'm not
Mhm,
the protagonist, I'm the narrator, and I am in charge of certain things, but the place is the main character.
mhm,
And I thought it was interesting in chapter 14 where I chose to take myself out of the place for the first time because I don't think
mm.
any other part of the book is outside of the ruins. It's all right there, and I go all the way to New York City, which makes me laugh. Yeah, because that's where Henry Clay Frick, who owns my coal mine, that's where all of that coal money ended up in that very fancy museum buying European art.
Right.
So that was a through line that I talk about it on the tours. I make that connection for people to understand that coal eventually became culture, through art. And I really wanted to get that into the book, and I did it. So I'm proud of myself for that.
Very good. There's so
Mm,
much could be said, yeah, maybe about that later.
it's a
But
big
yeah,
subject too.
that's what I think was different exactly, is that you had really left the ruins for that.
Mhm.
So yeah, and again, there's a point where you got to stop editing, Rachel. It has to stop. If not, it could go on forever. It could go on forever. I have friends who say once you're changing a word that you've already changed before, that's a sign that you should not be
Yeah.
editing anymore.
Yeah, it's not I mean, I wonder, because this is literally it was my first book, so it was a high learning curve, but I wonder how a perfectionist 'cause I'm actually not a perfectionist, you know? When I make a mosaic, I don't take things up. Very, very rarely do I get the hammer and chisel out and pull something up. I honestly sometimes like to see the mistake. I don't mind because I'll if there's a little mistake in there, I'll try to use it for a teaching tool from either myself or students, but I don't mind the imperfections necessarily. And maybe I'm going to be that way with writing too. We'll see. But I can see how if you're too much of a perfectionist with a book, you can just hold on to it forever. Just
Well, and these are times where we must embrace not only imperfections, but everything that is wrong with artificial intelligence and
mm,
all these things coming up. It's
mm.
not only about not being a perfectionist, it's about honoring. all of these mistakes in everything. More than mistakes, I think imperfections is a better word, because a mistake is something, well, I didn't intend to do that. I can fix it,
Yeah.
right? But an imperfection, and I'm thinking the idea that's coming to mind is I think it's a Japanese art form. I can't remember the
Wabi
name,
wabi
but where
sabi?
they
Wabi
is it
sabi?
wabi sabi? Wabi sabi, I think it is, where they a vase breaks and they do these
Oh, no,
golden.
that's another word, yeah. Is it?
It's another. Is I
Yeah,
think
it's
it's another
another
word.
word, yeah, but I
Yeah,
love it too. I love that.
so the vase breaks and then they put those golden lines in it and it looks so beautiful and I've never seen anything that honors imperfections as much as that.
Yeah,
And I remember so anyway, that's such a beautiful idea. Because it also shows life. Life is not mechanical. It's
right.
not in any way that it's full of imperfections. It's full of things that go wrong. And when you can honor that with beauty, because really that's what it is. It's honoring the imperfection, but with something beautiful.
Mhm.
So I think that's great.
Beauty is such a loaded word, oh my gosh. I have written a little bit about that too, that beauty should be enough. An art does not have to have a political statement, it does not have to prove something necessarily, it can just be beautiful. Um, and that's kind of a radical thing to say, if you live in a postmodernist kind of a mentality for art. Yeah,
And it's unbelievable because Plato said the good, the true, and the beautiful. And the more you step into beauty, the more you understand what he meant. It really is about truth and it's about the good. And those three things are so together. Once you go down into
they
the
are.
spirit of that,
Mhm.
those three things are so united. And again, Plato, we're talking, whew,
Yeah, and
centuries
Emma
back.
was Emily Dickinson with Truth and Beauty also. She returned to that. She didn't put the good in there, but she had the truth and beauty. Yeah.
But why is that? If you think about it, why is that? There's something about bringing out beauty because I don't know if we create it. We might. Okay, yeah, we'll create it, bring it out of something, and there's why is that always related to truth?
Well, I think the truth can be hard, but it's always beautiful. I don't know. I feel that way. Even if it's hard, it's beautiful because there's just beauty in. Mm, yeah, I don't know. I know I believe it. I'm not sure I'm putting it into words right. Yeah,
Well, it's hard. It's hard, I think, to put into words, but truth is being avoided in so
yeah.
many different
Being
ways.
honest with yourself. There's a beauty in being honest with yourself. When you're honest with yourself, you're more likely to be honest with the people around you and the world. I would say. I think that's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, how could I say this? Having an anchor in reality of what is really happening and not just in your head, you
Mm.
know? Or in that sense, truth of, and not the many truths. And I don't know about the absolute truth either, but
Well,
what is.
what's right in front of you, and I think that I think some people are finally maybe possibly getting to this in this because, I mean, with the AI and the videos and everything, the nature of truth is being obscured, if you're online so hard and so effectively that in some ways the only truth is what is right in front of you, like my cat laying on the bed right now. I
Mhm.
think that's real. I think that's real.
Thank
Um,
God.
yeah, right. But, yeah, I maybe the future will be, I mean, speaking of AI, the future will be what you can physically do with another person or in front of another person that is going to be more valuable all the time, I think. And I think Mosaic is poised to be like the best art for that way of thinking, with the
Mm.
smoothness and the hammers and the foraging, the kind of mosaic we do, um, that's slowing down and interacting with the geology and the nature. I don't know. It's like a balm for what we're living with.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's bringing fragments together. We're so fragmented,
Mhm.
everything is a fragment, everything is just a little piece of something. So I think we definitely need to develop that big picture, the free thinking kind of taking a step back and putting things together. And Mosaic really kind of does that.
It does. And the other thing that I think people were kind of predicting that long form writing was gonna go out of style because of the whole TikTok culture and the 3-second video or 20-second video or whatever, and that's true to a certain point, but if you can find, um, or if you can find the people who really, really eat up what you're selling, and I say selling in a good way, I don't mean in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bad, but if it's about Mosaic or about the ruins or whatever, they have infinite patience to read all of it. I mean, and that group of people is always gonna be really small, and I think that's a good thing. You're not gonna touch everybody by doing that, but they will have patience for what they want to hear or what they want to read or what they want to see.
Yeah, and it's also taking a stand. I remember people saying, "Oh, look, here's the first thriller written by AI. Here, you want to read it?" No, I don't want to read it. Why would I want to read a thriller written by AI? I'd much rather read somebody's experience on Earth. To be honest with you, and
Mhm,
I mean, of course, using AI for lots of other things that are amazing. I use it all the time,
mhm.
but I'm just saying, in terms of writing, I still, as a human being, want to connect with other people's real life experiences and
Mhm.
consciousnesses. That doesn't even have, probably is not even a plural, but to be able to connect with other people who have walked this earth. And that's one of the great things about writing is we could still go back and read what, Plato
They do.
uh,
Right, right.
wrote.
No.
It's still there. And that is so valuable.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, you had offered to read us something, which I'm very excited to hear because you are a writer and you wrote a beautiful piece. I've read some of it, of your experience at the ruins all those 9 years ago, and, you're going to grace us with a small paragraph, and,
Oh,
thank you for being willing to do that.
you're too kind. It's really simple, but I
Simple
hope
spirit.
this is kind of going to summarize everything I think we've or a lot of what we've covered. Okay, here goes. I had first heard about the ruins the previous year when I met Rachel in November 2016. She was invited to Buenos Aires to teach two memorable workshops: The Forager Mosaicist and Can the Line Make You a Better Person? I had signed up for the latter when I got a call from my local teacher asking if I wanted to be Rachel's interpreter for both workshops and also for the annual Mosaic Artists meeting in Argentina. The catch was that because I would be acting as Rachel's interpreter, I would not be allowed to be a student. On one hand, I regretted giving up my chance to build a piece under Rachel's supervision, but upon further analysis, it seemed like a smart trade off. Part of the advantage of being an interpreter is that if you connect with the speaker and if she trusts you, a kind of magical empathy takes place and you become part of their voice. All of Rachel's wisdom would flow through me. It would have to go through my mind and past my mouth to get across to her students. So, and here is a great advantage, a lot would be left with me. This is so selfish. Even though I would not be able to create any mosaics in class, I would be picking up on all the feedback, all the corrections, all the advice she would just so generously be imparting over 2 weeks.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I feel so blessed, I really do, that we've reconnected, um, especially over writing. And I just say that I would like to see, what you're working on in the studio. I know you've taken a little bit of a hiatus from that yourself, from the mosaic work, but I would love to see where you are, in the coming months with that.
Oh, thank you. And this is a great Kickstarter for. I'm now trying to write as much as I can, which has also been challenging because I write in English and then I write in Spanish, and it's now I'm at the most trying to get everything together like a mosaic. So yes, I would love that, and I would love you. You'll always be a mentor, so that would
Well,
be
I
wonderful.
will absolutely figure out a way. Robert always gets really crabby when I try to send international boxes, but I'm gonna put a box of sandstone and red dog together for you. We'll send it down. Is
Oh my goodness.
that what you maybe a little bit of Yakugani shale, maybe it's
Oh, wow.
yeah, be
That
good.
is fan I'm so glad, we got to talk, Rachel,
I
and
love
I hope we'll
you.
continue to do so.
Yeah, we'll do it again. And thank you for getting me back on the horse. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
same here, same here. Thank you, and it's a great honor to have been your first guest now.
Well, it's mutual. Thanks, Maria.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.